Hello and welcome back to Green Money Momentum, where we talk about market movements, making money, and money momentum. I'm your host, Trevor, and as many of you know, the big, beautiful bill was officially signed by the president yesterday on the 4th of July. And as many know, there are a lot of different tax cuts proposed within this bill, most notably no tax on tips, no taxes on Social Security, and no taxes on overtime. And then there are also some that are very fearful because within this bill, there are also cuts when it comes to government spending and rebalancing when it comes to certain social programs, most notably Medicaid, and also social programs such as SNAP and other assistance. And so with that, there is a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt on that side. And then there is also positive hope when it comes to the no tax on tips and the cuts when it comes to the federal taxes. But also within this bill, there is also what some will call the pork of the bill, which is where the government will get extra funding. So where more money will flow to within this bill. This is what Elon Musk has talked about a lot, the pork of the bill. And this is what also has many concerned about how this will increase the deficit as the years go on. But as investors, we want to take advantage of this pork and we want to eat up where we are able to. And the pork within this bill should really be benefiting one of our favorite plays on this channel, the big guy back there, Big Bear. So what am I talking about here? Well, within the bill, there is going to be increases around military and defense spending, which puts our play Big Bear in a perfect position because Big Bear is all about AI and defense. And even in President Trump's speech yesterday, he did talk about the Golden Dome, defense, and AI. And within this bill, there is going to be around $150 billion in additional defense spending, and then another $150 billion allocated for border security and immigration enforcement. And so this is absolutely massive. And in general, I do believe that the big, beautiful bill is going to push up all assets in the market this upcoming week, as there was a lot of anticipation for this big, beautiful bill, and it did get passed right on the time frame that President Trump set initially on July 4th. But I personally believe that Big Bear will also see a lot of momentum in it because of the additional defense spending in this bill, along with all the hype and momentum within the markets. But this greatly benefits Big Bear, and they are in a perfect position here, especially when it talks about the additional $150 billion allocated for border security and immigration enforcement, because we know with Big Bear, they have a lot when it comes to the airports and their face scan technology, and a big part behind their technology is scanning for international folks coming into the country. And so this is huge with what we see, an additional $300 billion in additional defense spending. And this puts Big Bear again at a perfect position, because if you don't know about Big Bear, their CEO, Kevin McClellan, is a former member of the Department of Defense. So he was the head of the Department of Defense, and also he was formerly the CEO of Pangaeum. And so we know Pangaeum and Big Bear have had a lot of deals this last year. Pangaeum has done some investments with Big Bear, and we could only assume that Kevin had a big part in making that connection and those deals happen. And so with Kevin being the former head of the Department of Defense during the last Trump presidency, this greatly puts Big Bear at a perfect position for this additional spending that is going to be coming from the government. And in general, BigBearAi has been gaining a lot of momentum. So we know in the last month, this play has jumped by over 100%, and there's a lot of volume, momentum, and hype around the Big Bear. Right now, where we are currently sitting at, there has been a big rip up in the short term, but we still have a chance to go higher, even to just the 52-week high. We could see right now to just the 52-week high, which was set around February, we have a 24% jump, $2.07 to that 52-week high. So still some opportunity for investors who have yet to join into the Big Bear, or for any investors that want to continue to dollar cost average into the Big Bear. And in general, we could really be seeing a big squeeze within the Big Bear coming very soon, because we did have some flatline momentum there for a while after we did see a big drop off coming from February. And so Currently, there is a big short interest within the Big Bear, up to 27% short interest. And so this is absolutely massive. And when we look at the volume chart, we can see that the volume has been skyrocketing within the Big Bear. We are seeing the highest levels of volume that we have seen all year. So a lot of hype, momentum, and buying going within to the Big Bear. And this is massive because during this time, if we just look at the history of everything that has recently happened in the market, we could bet that a lot of shorts and a lot of puts have been put into the Big Bear, just as the analytics show us the high short interest of 27%. But you could bet during this whole time of retraction that the bears have been shorting against the Big Bear. And so there are a lot of shorts under $10 within the Big Bear. But during this same time, the bulls have been very strong within the Big Bear, and the bulls were buying all around these opportunities when we were flatlined and on the way up. So there's a lot of bulls that have bought into the Big Bear, putting some pressure within the shorts. And so this is very interesting where we are sitting at currently, because we do have this big, beautiful bill passing, and this will cause a spark within the market. So there was a lot of anticipation for the markets this last week. And just like the major indexes and how the major indexes did retract for a big time earlier in the year, all the way till most recently, it's kind of like a beach ball in the water. The harder you try to push it down and the further you try to push it, it's going to bounce back at an even greater, more violent push up. And so that is exactly how I feel with the Big Bear, because we were seeing a lot of hype and momentum around the big catalysts we were seeing earlier in the year during the first major rip up that we had in February. There was a lot of hype around Big Bear's new CEO, Kevin, getting put into that place, and then also with some of the big government contracts that they had gotten. But then overall, the markets in general had a big retraction, and it did affect the Big Bear as well. But now we have seen the markets have shaken off a lot of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and have been recovering in general. A lot of the major indexes have been recovering, as well as a lot of stocks as well. So this has been a crazy time within the markets, and I personally believe that Big Bear is in the perfect position to just rip even higher. We're really going into the perfect storm within the market. First, with this big, beautiful bill being passed, the additional spending when it comes to defense, Big Bear being in a perfect position there. And then also, we do know that the Federal Reserve is talking about cutting rates here very soon. And so this year may finish very big for the Big Bear, because when these rate cuts do come, this is really going to stimulate the market. And like I'm saying, with the beach ball underwater, it was underwater for a long time earlier in the year, and it has absolutely shot up. So a lot of violent momentum going towards the upside. But of course, just looking at technical analysis, we are looking a bit overvalued on the relative strength index, and then also the MACD as well. So some investors are a bit worried about where we are currently sitting when it comes to technicals. And that is completely understandable, because if you are buying into stocks when just looking at technical analysis, this is a high spot to buy. But what I encourage investors to remember is that technical analysis is just one part of it. The other part is a lot when it comes to the fundamentals, and then also the macros. And so the fundamentals behind Big Bear look really great. And when we look at their earnings, they've had some very consistent quarters. So $40 million revenue quarters, and their next quarter is expected to be bigger than their last quarter. So Wall Street is expecting for their next quarter to be at 40 million, and their next earnings is going to come at the end of this month. And so some hype and momentum should be building into the Big Bear. And with this next earnings, I do foresee Big Bear possibly beating this earnings, because we do know in their last earnings, they did mention that a lot of their big government contracts and a lot of the big payments that they were getting haven't showed up yet in their balance sheet. So the possibility that it will show up in this next earnings. And so this is a big catalyst. And then again, macroeconomic conditions are getting a lot better, and the markets, I believe, are only running up even higher. So if we just look at the market cycle and where we are currently at, I believe that we are just pushing into these levels of belief right now, because during this big retraction and this big recovery in the markets, as Tom Lee has said, this has been one of the most hated V recoveries, because of how many investors were sitting out on the sideline line. And now those investors feeling a lot of fear of missing out on the big recovery that we have seen. And overall, in my belief, I believe that the strength within the markets will only continue. Just like on the downside, it's very hard to predict the bottom of a falling knife. When momentum rips towards the upside, it's also very hard to predict where the top will be. But what I could say is, even with indicators looking a bit overvalued in not just Big Bear, but the entire market, the markets can remain irrational for some time. So in my belief, I do see Big Bear getting back to the double-digit range here very soon. I have a price target for Big Bear right now at $11. I do believe that if hype and momentum gets crazy enough, we could see it this upcoming week. If not this week, we do have the big catalyst of their earnings at the end of the month. And even if that doesn't push the Big Bear up to double digits, I definitely believe that the Big Bear will be in double digits by the end of the year. But right now we are seeing a lot of catalysts, and we are really entering into what might be the perfect cash storm within the market. So myself, I am very heavily invested into the Big Bear. I put my investments earlier into the year after the big retraction from what we saw earlier in February, and I am very bullish on the Big Bear. I am very excited for what is to come, and this company overall in general is growing. So while it is in the single digit range, I personally believe that this is a blessing and a perfect opportunity to buy into the Big Bear. Some are comparing this stock to being like Palantir, and if that is true, we should only see more positive price movements in the Big Bear coming in the near future. But I would be curious to hear what everyone else thinks about BigBearAi in the comment section below. So please drop a comment. Let me know if you are bullish or bearish on the Big Bear. Please leave a like and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. I thank you guys all for being here, and I will see you in the next video.